Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our next consultation event about our plans to bring links back to Kielder Forest for a trial release. My name is Dr. Paul O'Donoghue. I'm the director of the Links UK Trust. Dominic Woodfield was going to join us tonight, but due to reasons out of our control, he can't. But he will be involved in the ongoing consultations and the next events coming up. So I'll give you an overview of what we're going to do tonight. So, and again, some of this will be repetition from last time for obvious reasons, because there might be new people who didn't see the first event. But let me just start by saying that the first consultation is on YouTube, the full 2 hours with the full presentation and the questions and answers. So please do go back and look at that. We found it very useful. We hope you did too. But what we're going to do is, obviously, we'll give an overview, but then we'll build on the information we provided last time, and also we'll build on the themes that we got from the questions last time and the questions we've got in the interim. So thanks a lot to everybody who sent in questions again. It's great to have that level of engagement. It's exactly what we want to see. So thank you for taking the time and effort to do that. We do appreciate it. So we'll give more information, more detailed information on some key areas. Then we'll do another question and answer session. We'll take your questions that come in over the last week, and some of them, a lot of them, all of them are valuable, and some of them very insightful. So thank you very much. Then we'll talk about the next steps of the consultation and further ways you can get involved, and other groups we're going to be talking to, and other ways that we want to engage in and reach audiences. So here we go. So just a little bit about me. So I'm a conservation biologist, conservation for over 20 years. I've worked on some really interesting and high-profile projects. I worked in Africa for around 10 to 15 years. I worked on black rhino conservation, which is often very upsetting actually, but gives you a good broad overview of lots of different issues. Close to home, I've been involved in predator human conflict mitigation. So this is me in Romania, where we were catching brown bears. We were translocating them from around campsites, and this one was actually found outside, was actually caught outside a block of council flats, and we translocated it to Transylvania. So that's direct experience working in predator projects in Europe. And close to home again, a project I'm very proud to have been involved in is the reintroduction of the great bustard onto the Salisbury Plain. So these birds were extinct in the UK, and they've been brought back for the first time in hundreds of years. I'm very pleased to say that there's now a breeding population there. And I was a scientific advisor for that project. I did the DNA work that allowed the birds to be brought in from Spain, and that project's a real success. Scottish wildcats are an area, an animal, an issue that I'm very interested in. It's one of the rarest cats in the world now, with estimates as low as 35, and I'm directly involved in a project to conserve the last Scottish wildcats. So how did all this start? Why did we launch the Links UK Trust? What happened? What prompted it? Well, people have been talking about links reintroduction in the UK for 20, 30 years. Nothing was happening. But we felt like the time was right. I felt, and people I talked to felt like the time was right to launch this, to actually start the process. So we launched it in the Sunday Times, and we announced a public survey. And to cut a long story short, it turned out to be, I think today, the biggest species restoration survey ever, with over 9,500 respondents in 6 days. And interestingly, 92.8% of those respondents were in favour of bringing links back, and over 50% of those respondents were from rural areas. So it showed that our gut feeling that this was the right time was correct. But also, it's not only public opinion, there's evidence now, as you can't get away from it in the media, and it's a good thing, that awareness of the state of our countryside, the shocking state of our countryside, is very obvious now. And the State of Nature report 2016 and further reports all tell a very simple story, that the UK countryside is dying. There's a number of species that are, well, this is the data, 50% of species have declined, with 40% showing strong or moderate declines. And UK has lost significantly more nature over the long term than the global average, with amongst the most nature depleted countries in the world. I mean, that shocks me. It should shock you. It's scary stuff, and we're all now seeing obviously the consequences of what we're doing. And I don't think anyone disagrees that healthy ecosystems are invaluable to not only us but future generations. And yeah, the time to act is, well, was yesterday, but we can't act yesterday, so we need to act now. So what we're actually doing, what we're talking about, and again, some of these points will have been covered before, but it's important to lay out what we're doing for new people on the talk. So we're seeking the necessary licenses to conduct a highly regulated 5-year scientific trial, studying the effects of Eurasian lynx on selected sites in Scotland and/or England. It's a scientific trial, it's not a reintroduction. And the key point to make is this trial is fully reversible at any point. And I'll talk about exit strategies later, should they be needed. Obviously, we don't think they will. That's a key point. Please keep those two facts in your head all the way through this. It's a trial and it's fully reversible. So what's a lynx? Well, it's a medium-sized cat. It's not a big cat. It's not a tiger. It's not a leopard. It's not a lion. It's a medium-sized cat, quite small, 18 to 30 kilograms. And I've been quoted as saying that there's quite a lot in the media. It's not very flattering, but they're like a skinny Labrador. They're the same kind of height and body length, but much more slenderly built. So yeah, they're a medium-sized animal. The primary prey is roe deer. They're absolutely a woodland specialist. Highly secretive in places where they're found in Europe. They call them the ghost cat because you know they're there, but you can't see them. No risk to humans. Very important point to just get that out of the way. There's not been a documented attack of a wild lynx attacking a human in human history, and lynx are found all over the northern hemisphere. So zero risk to people, roe deer specialist, and medium-sized cat, skinny Labrador, basically. They were once widespread in the UK. We had some really good questions last week about how they found that out. Well, that's from carbon dating bones found in limestone caves that brave people go down and, well, brave and interested in this kind of thing. They go and collect bones from thousands of years ago, and we're able to carbon date and identify what they are. And there's limestone caves all over the country, and lynx are found all over the country. Lynx remains are found all over the country. They were widespread from, I've got samples with DNA samples from north of Scotland right down to Devon and Cornwall, and a lot in northern England and in Yorkshire and further north of that. So they went extinct about 1,300 years ago. It was deforestation, habitat loss, and also trapping for the fur trade. However, since then, there's been a lot of reforestation in the UK, although we're still, we should have a lot more forest, and I think everyone agrees with that. But most importantly, there's been a complete cessation of fur trapping and trading. It just doesn't happen anymore. You know, people don't wear fur coats anymore. There's no demand for it. It's rightly, most people find it revolting, and that's good. So this is a picture that I always find sad. It's of a lynx being treed by a pack of hunted lynx. They sent dogs in to get on scent and put the lynx up a tree. The lynx was using its natural defense to get away from a ground predator, but then it was obviously then be killed while it was in the tree. And you know, that's how the last lynx probably would have died in the UK, which is to me and a lot of other people a very sad thing. However, thankfully, times have changed. As you said, there's no fur trade, but also there's been a lot of reforestation, and there is an abundance of prey. So we have no large predators. We have no lynx, wolves, or bear. So our deer populations are, and again, this is beyond doubt, are much higher than they would naturally be. Estimates are that double what they should naturally be. So you can imagine the deer pressure, the deer browsing pressure on our ecosystems. But it's not, so there's loads of food for them now, and the main reason they went extinct, the fur trade is gone. This is all backed up by scientific literature, which we'll explore in more detail later. But there's a number of reviews, papers, research documents that suggest that the UK can support population of lynx. And again, I talked about this in detail last time, but I won't this time. But just to be rest assured that the guidelines for reintroduction and other conservation translocations are what our licenses will be reviewed against by the government, and it's what we're using to formulate our license. But again, I talked at length about that last time. But this is the code, the guidelines that the government and us use. So we use it, and the government assess against it. So it's married up. And again, touched on this last time, but just so you know, and you'll all be aware of this, there are various directives and conventions that support the plans to restore ecosystems and to bring back extinct species if that's possible, and also to look at the appropriateness of bringing back those species through trials. So that's embedded in the legislation. So what will it involve? And again, to re-emphasize this point, time limited, 5 years, to observe, measure, and analyze the effects of links. And I'll do a full section on monitoring towards the end of this talk, and I'll bore you to death with the level of detail that we're going to collect. But we will be looking at every aspect we can. And again, if people think we've missed out on certain aspects, then tell us. We want to collect as much data as we can. That is a genuine goal. That is the rationale for this project, and that will then enable Natural England, Nature Scot, and respective governments to make an evidence-based decision regarding the long-term desirability of links in the UK. That's not our decision. We are doing a trial to collect data. It won't be our decision that links should be reintroduced. Of course, we believe that the UK should reintroduce links, but that is not our decision. That will ultimately be a government decision, and we're certainly not doing a full reintroduction now. So why do this? What are the reasons why we're bothering? What's the importance? Well, restoring ecosystems again. It's obvious to everybody now. Restoring ecosystems, functioning ecosystems are invaluable to our health, to our economies, to every aspect of our lives, and it's quite amazing now that we're all realizing how intertwined everything is. I think pre-COVID and pre-climate change issues, we saw ourselves as out with the natural world. Now we're very much in the middle of it, and that's good. But links will restore ecosystems through controlling deer populations, promoting forest regeneration, which is invaluable to our aspirations for tree planting and to create viable habitats, functioning habitats. Moral duty, to me, that's as important as anything else. We kill these animals, and we should right that wrong. We have a moral, ethical duty to do that. It's not right that what we did, and we should right that wrong. Economic benefits, very, very, very strong and proven economic benefits of links. A number of case studies in Europe where when links come back, the money flows into local and regional economies, millions of pounds. There's a number of further planned full reintroductions in Europe in countries that already have links. They want to do second reintroductions, like in Germany. So because it's been so effective and they've seen the economic benefits. And as we all know, in a post-COVID world, well, not that COVID will go, but in a post-lockdown world, rural regeneration, economic regeneration is paramount. So restoring ecosystems, slightly more detailed, not as much as last time. So they'll help woodlands grow, basically. They'll reduce and change the behavior of deer. They won't eat out an area, they'll move around. The links also kill foxes, and foxes can predate on ground nesting birds. So we should see this ecosystem start to come back into life where the mesopredators are reduced and the deer are reduced. So our woodlands have a chance to restore balance, to increase biodiversity. And when a lynx kills, it also provides carrion for other birds and scavengers, and particularly in winter, that's very important for a number of species. That will depend on that food to get through the winter, as they do in functioning European ecosystems. Lynx are they're a keystone species. There's other ones now in the UK, thankfully. We're aware of the beaver reintroduction. So there's more than one now, and you can see the profound ecological changes that have occurred because of that, and that's again very welcome. So links have the potential to also provide profound ecological changes over the long term by promoting healthy forest ecosystems. Economics, so just cold hard facts really, and have a look at these. I'm not going to go through them all, but have a look at them. Have a look at the the cold hard balance sheets of what ecotourism, sustainable ecotourism can do and what it can bring in for people. It's all there. These are all taken from peer-reviewed papers, from documents published by organisations about the work, the projects they developed. You'll see them all over the country there, from the west of Scotland to the Forest of Dean. Ospreys, peregrine falcons, everything. But imagine the draw of lynx. You know, if ospreys can generate that kind of money, imagine what lynx could generate. And I know ospreys are very close to the hearts of people in Kielder, and rightly so, and it's something to be very proud of. And so you're fully aware of the potential of sustainable ecotourism, well thought out ecotourism based around charismatic species. And lynx will be the most charismatic species in the UK. So a real life case study of this is the Harz Mountains, and we actually visited the Harz Mountains and very early on in our project just to see the impact of lynx, because the Harz Mountains, Germany had no lynx, they had none. So they decided to do a full reintroduction. They released 15 to 20 animals in the Harz Mountains, which is in central Germany. And Germany, you know, most people would agree, is relatively similar to the UK in terms of economic development and, you know, population density. It's quite comparable. In the Harz Mountains, a lot of places in it look like Kielder. It's coniferous forest. So we sent a team of environmental economists and consultants over to the Harz Mountains to interview people to get to the bottom of why people were going to the Harz Mountains. What was the reason? How important were lynx to this? Was this a red herring, or was it actually, you know, were the lynx incidental, or were they a driving force? And we found out clearly they were a driving force. You know, they're above historic sites, above food and drink, above the cultural history of the area, above bird watching, even above winter sports. So that shows the draw these animals have, and that again was what we thought, what we hoped to see. But to see it by actually interviewing people and talking to people and getting that data was very powerful thing to be involved in, and very interesting to analyze that data when it came in. And again, we had people look at again, people who do this for a living, environmental economists, environmental consultants. They did a full cost benefit analysis, and they worked out that lynx were bringing up to £12.5 million to the Harz Mountains economy, which is game changing for that place. Absolutely game changing. And it is Lynx Town. You know, it is absolutely Lynx Town, Bad Harzburg. It is full. You cannot get away from pictures of lynx, images of lynx. It's everywhere, on every shop. In every shop, there's statues, there's merchandise. They've really took advantage of it, and the lynx benefit from that, and the human population benefits from that, and it's very important to say that, you know, we've met the people who did this project. We've been out with them. We've been to the forest. We've met stakeholders, and it's very important to say that they had exactly the same fears and opposition and concerns when they launched their project. Exactly the same. Now they don't, because the lynx have proven. I've done the talking, really. We had lynx cable cars, everything. It's Disneyland for lynx. So this is where we start to go on to build on what we talked about last week. So this is kind of new information and new insights into how we got to where we are. A lot of people ask us, both from Kielder and in other areas. Some people ask us why they're not being chosen. Some people say why Kielder, but why Kielder? How have we got to this point? Why have we selected it? Why are we focusing on it? Well, to cut a long story short, it was after a very, very detailed and lengthy scoping study carried out by AECOM, who are one of the biggest environmental consultancy firms in the world. And there was a lot of different layers to this. And we initially chose 5 sites across the UK. It was well publicised in the media. And we looked at a range of factors. So there was 4 stages to it. One was to identify initial sites. So you'll have heard in the news about Thetford Forest. That was a site. There was sites in Cumbria, in Kintyre, in Aberdeenshire, and Kielder. There was 5 sites, and they were chosen at a quite high level, based on forest cover, and looking at basically a forest cover map of the UK, where the big chunks of forest are. So we initially identified 5 sites, and those sites, Thetford Forest is a famous forest, Kielder Forest is a famous forest, Aberdeenshire is well known for having high levels of forest, so is Kintyre. There's no surprise that we chose these sites. However, then this is where we started to drill down. We wanted to get to the best site for a trial. What was the best site? Based on what we call a multifactorial analysis, not just forest cover, but literally so many different factors we looked at. So we carried out a high-level review to come up with a number of factors to look at. Then we went into detail into each of those factors, and based on analysing those multifactorial issues, we came up with a recommended pilot site. So that was the process. It was a long process. It was detailed. There was lots of people involved in it, lots of people from different backgrounds involved in it, ecologists, economists, people involved in infrastructure projects, people involved in ecotourism. It was a really massive job, and it culminated in recommending a pilot site, which, as you all know, is Kielder. So I'll just go through some of the data, the nitty-gritty of the data that we collected, and some of the parameters that we chose. So, Kielder Forest as an area is around 650 square kilometers, with 75% woodland cover in that. I mean, that's, if you think about the UK average is 13%. So, Kielder is blessed in that it has good amounts of forest, which is brilliant. At the time, there was the lower estimate of 7 roe deer per square kilometre. That's still a lot of deer, but that's since been revised upwards actually to 11 to 12 based on information that's come out from other sources and from empirical research carried out by University of Cumbria. So yeah, the current estimates are between 11 and 12 per square kilometre, but even 7 per square kilometre is very, very high. Think about that, 7 roe deer per square kilometre. And then look at the human density, only 24 per kilometre square. Again, well, I think that's a blessing. It's nice to live in a place where there's space and there's space to be, and yeah, 24 people per square kilometre is a key parameter. But this is again showing the level of nitty-gritty, level of detail. We have people analysing every single road, every single railway line, every single river, and this was when we're getting towards the end of the funnel. We narrowed it down to 2 sites, Aberdeenshire and Kielder Forest. Again, you'll have seen that in the media. We were deciding which one to go for, and so we looked at all these parameters. But look how Kielder stacks up in terms of roads, because road accidents, road deaths are one of the major sources, if not the major source, of lynx mortality across Europe. So obviously, it's a key parameter for us to consider. We're duty bound and want to consider that. But look how well Kielder stacks up against Aberdeenshire. So it's got like a third of the road network. Only 0.23 kilometers of road per square kilometer. Again, fantastic site for lynx in terms of mitigating roadkill. Length of primary roads very, very low. A roads, B roads very, very low. No railway lines through, and a lower length of river, which means that the forest isn't as partitioned, which means that lynx can move and utilize the full forest. So this is the level of nitty-gritty that we went to, and without, I almost want to bore you with it because I want you to see what we did and how much work went into this. We even looked at the value added in an area and the economic development. Sorry, that slide slipped down, and apologies for that. But we wanted to look at the economic added value that lynx would bring, and we wanted to look at the relative economic prosperity of the 2 areas, because a key driver with ecotourism, if an area is already affluent, there's less argument to develop sustainable ecotourism than in an area that's more deprived. And when you look at the parameters, Aberdeenshire is much more affluent than Northumberland and the Scottish borders. So again, that adds impetus to and more justification for using links as a driver to create jobs for young people, ecotourism jobs, sustainable jobs, and also Northumberland and the borders have a much higher unemployment rate. So there's much more need to create jobs in these areas than there is in Aberdeenshire. So again, you're looking at this multifactorial issue: roads, forest cover, deer density, human population, river lengths, economic issues, unemployment rates. This is the level of detail that we've gone into. Some really good questions last week about plantation forests, and we covered it a little bit, but we're now going to provide the references. Obviously, you'll appreciate last week was giving you an overview, and there's hundreds and hundreds of papers that will be going into our application, and I'm not going to put them all up on a presentation because you literally will fall asleep. But these are new papers that we didn't put up last week, so we'll add them in. Niedzielkowska et al. 2006 did an interesting study looking in Poland at linked population, where forests are largely in areas where forests were largely commercial plantations, just like Kielder. The areas they looked at, the study areas where links were 76% of the area occupied by coniferous plantation, very similar to Kielder. And what they found, this is a key point, links were supported throughout the plantation area. Links liked the plantation area, they did well in it. And I made this point last week, and I'll reiterate it again. Links don't look at the species of tree, they look at the function the tree gives. Does it provide cover? Does it provide a home for deer? If it does those things, then it ticks the box for links. Link doesn't go, it's Scots pine versus Sitka, or it's an oak tree versus beech tree. It doesn't do that. It looks at the functionality of the ecosystem. And then other studies by Podgorski et al. 2008. Again, we didn't talk about this last week, but very interesting study looking at habitat preferences. Links show no strong preference for age or type of forest. They just like forest. They need forest for hunting. Like we said all along, we say it again, links are forest specialists, but they don't mind what type of forest it is. So the fact that Kielder is man-made, is coniferous, makes no difference to the viability of that forest for links as long as the prey is there, and no one would argue. Every person I speak to in Kielder talks to me about deer. But again, what's really reassuring is we carried out the scoping study, and the scientific evidence backs it up. So previous studies before our scoping study showed how good the southern uplands, of which Kielder is a part, how viable it was for links. Hetherington and Tal said the southern uplands could support to 50 links. That was using the lower range of deer estimates. It's probably a lot higher now, actually. And then what's again reassuring is since our work, Johnston and Greenwood have also identified the southern uplands in Kielder as containing the largest habitat network, and that should be brackets in the UK, in England, sorry, is located in the southern uplands of Scotland and Kielder Forest of England. So they're saying, again, that the biggest chunks of suitable habitat for lynx are in the southern uplands, and of which Kielder Forest is a part. So studies before our scoping work confirmed Kielder is a great site. Our scoping studies show Kielder is a great site, and studies after have shown Kielder is a great site. So I want to really talk in detail now about livestock in much more detail than we did last time. We had questions on it last time, so we've had questions again, which is great, and we welcome them. So again, and I'll really drill down into the data soon on this 0.4 sheep per lynx per year point, which is based on the scientific facts that we've got available to us based on kill rates across multiple countries, and you'll see this table in a minute. Impacts on game and other species are negligible, low direct predation, and actually probably indirect benefits from reduced fox numbers. If you're interested in game birds, for example, then less foxes is probably a good thing for ground nesting bird populations. And we'll look at the Heart's compensation, which is a real study, which is a real live ongoing case study about a population of 120 lynx and how much compensation is actually paid out. So, and again, let's not forget, there's sometimes an attempt to talk about links being a threat to the livestock industry, which we understand that there are concerns, but that is beyond the realms of reality. and just look at the context of lynx attacks, predicted lynx attacks compared to dog attacks. I mean, you know, just picking the year 2012, there was 739 sheep attacked by dogs in the UK. Well, based on 0.4 lynx per sheep, 0.4 sheep per lynx per year, you know, our trial, and even if we went to a full reintroduction, the impact is going to be negligible. But we'll really show you some case studies about that. But this should also be put against the context of background mortality in the UK of lambs. So 2 to 6 million lambs per year are lost to infectious diseases, malnutrition, exposure, and natural mortality. 2 to 6 million. That is many orders of magnitude bigger than any threat that lynx can pose, and I was, you know, maybe that should be the focus of attention. And let's look at the Harts Mountains. This is a real project with about 120 lynx. So look at the data from different years. It's most years less than €1,000. So it's, you know, it's less than a tenner a lynx. But we've already shown that lynx can bring in millions of pounds. So again, it becomes this perceived versus actual risk and perceived versus actual benefits. So there's a high perceived risk of negative impacts of lynx, but there's a high actual benefit, economic benefit. So we have to start to look seriously at perceived versus actual risk and look at the data, the cold hard facts, because that's what ultimately our license should be assessed on. So this is, I'm going to slide because, you know, a lot of people have asked about sheep predation, and a lot of people, and, you know, some people have said it's been cherry picked and it's not representative, and, you know, it's not going to be the same in the UK, and there's different countries with different factors. Well, let's just have a look at it. So, you know, Norway sheep predation is now synonymous with UK lynx reintroduction because much has been made of the sheep loss in Norway. So we put that top of the table. Let's talk about it. There is no doubt that there is high numbers of sheep lost in Norway, but that's because their farming system is very different to the one in the UK. In the summers, they herd the sheep into the forest. So the sheep use the same game trails that the roe deer use. So the sheep are effectively walking past lynx in the forest that are in hunting mode. But also that data does not discriminate between lynx, wolves, and bear, and wolverine, which are all present in Norway. None of them are present in the UK. But that isn't so that figure, we've put it up there, but it isn't attributed to lynx. Although often much is made of trying to attribute it to lynx, but it's just not. But even then, in the absolute, you know, we were told doomsday scenario, it comes down to 10 lynx per year, 10 sheep per lynx per year, which is, and if you start to look down that list, it is many, many, many times higher than almost every other country. And that the great thing about Norway is it's the exception that proves the rule. It's the exception that proves what we're saying. It's the exception that shows that lynx are not major sheep predators. If they were, that far right column would have numbers similar to Norway. There isn't one, nowhere near. Most countries, it's zero or close to zero. So again, we've never said, and we won't say, and I won't say now, that lynx don't take livestock. They do, and they will. But it is a very small amount compared to background mortality, and it isn't. Norway does not represent the rest of Europe, and it doesn't represent the UK. It's the exception that proves the rule. You know, look at some of the countries look at the Czech Republic. There was 44 over a 5-year period, 44 sheep loss. We've got a population of 91 lynx, so 0.1 sheep per lynx per year. That's much less than the average. Look at Albania, where numbers are slightly higher. But again, when you do the average over 2, 4, 6, 8, you know, nearly 20 countries across Europe, all the major states are in there. We've got the average. That's it. And this isn't our data. It's taken from Brighton Modes with TEL 2000, it's peer reviewed, it's well established data. A lot of the data was from government figures. Again, please take the time to look at it and look at countries where you maybe know the farming system, where you know how they farm sheep, and look at the data in those countries. But again, you'll see that Norway stands out massively. So we don't dispute that, but it shows the points we're making that over the rest of Europe, where with a different farming system, and I question the logic of putting sheep in a forest with 3 major predators, and I think that you get the sheep loss that you see in other countries where it doesn't happen. You just don't get it. It's just not there. But please do look at this data. Look in Germany. Look at the Czech Republic, Poland, Ukraine, Austria, Slovenia. Look how many links they've got, and look at the kill rates. And it tells a very clear and unambiguous story. So whilst we fully, and we know it's a tough time for farmers, and we really do, and there's going to be big changes ahead, massive changes to the subsidy system, and we understand that upland sheep farmers are nervous, and and rightly so. But please, don't think, and we don't want people to be anxious that links are going to damage their livelihood, because the simple fact is that they're not, and then there's no evidence that stands up to scrutiny that shows that they are. So please, we know there's things that you should be worried about, but links isn't one of them. But we still want to engage and talk with farmer communities genuinely, and bring them onto a steering group and get the input and work with them. And it could be that, as happened in Germany and other countries, farmers, daughters, sons get jobs in ecotourism in links areas. So it's diversification opportunities as well. So this is not, I know it's billed sometimes in the media as links versus farmers, and it's just a non-argument. That's not the way we see it, and I don't think it's the way most farmers see it. We live in a complex, changing countryside, all of us, and those of us who are fortunate enough to live in the countryside, we know the complexities, the challenges that we all face. And I live in the countryside too, and my family's farmed for a long time, and we understand the issues, so we're sympathetic to them. But please don't be worried, and please look at the actual raw data, the cold, hard numbers in front of you. And again, the data. So you might say, oh, you just took it from one paper. You cherry picked that paper. Do it yourself. Go on Google Scholar and look at links predation. You'll see a very common theme. So Joe Binatel 2000 looked at Jura, very detailed case study in the Jura Mountains, and they examined the remains of over 600 lynx kills. I mean, imagine how much work that is. 600 lynx kills between over 10 years, and did not find any livestock victims at all. None. That's published. You can go and check that data. So, that is a very powerful bit of research. The Jura population stabilized at about, and this was when the population grew and there's more lynx, stabilized at about 70 to 100 kills per year. But that was when there was about 100 lynx. So it just shows that, again, the data there in this very specific case study is 1 sheep killed per lynx per year, which is slightly above the average in Europe, but it's not very different from the average. 0.4 to 1 is a difference of 0.6 sheep. So it's definitely in the same ballpark. And this is, again, this is a very nailed down, detailed case study. And on the odd occasion when lynx do take sheep, they're unlikely to take more than one. What we've heard, especially when we first launched this project, not so much now because people understand because of the education that's gone on around lynx and what lynx actually are. They're an ambush predator. They're not, and we used to hear stories. It always makes me laugh about packs of wolves. You will never see a pack about packs of lynx. You will never see a pack of lynx ever. If you do, take a picture of it, send it to National Geographic. Be worth a fortune. You'll never see them. But also lynx are not like when you see dog attacks in fields. They don't kill like that. The ambush predators. They take one animal, they feed that animal for a week. So they'll take a deer, they'll pick it off a game trail, they'll sit there, they'll guard that prey for a week, and they won't kill until they need to. Killing is a risky business for a predator. This is in stark contrast to dog attacks, where there's articles in farmers' publications and about one dog killed 50 sheep in a period in South Wales. That's one dog, 50 sheep. That dog killed half the number of sheep than 100 lynx in Jura. To put it in context, there are dogs all over the countryside off leads. That's something that we are opposed to. We are obviously, animal welfare is a the whole team. We're very committed to animal welfare, very interested in it, and we don't want to see sheep worrying by dogs. We're as appalled by that as any farmer would be, rest assured on that. But it's always about getting context, and again the perception. I think if you ask most farmers what's the biggest, a lot of farmers might perceive lynx more of a threat than a dog, but that's just not the case. And again, we have to bring it down to real case studies. We touched on this briefly, but I want to go into more detail. It's a bit gory, actually, some of it. But so people say, how would you identify if a sheep is killed by a lynx? Well, it's quite easy because lynx kill in a very different way to a dog. So lynx are precision killers. They go for the neck, around the larynx, and there's clear bite marks around that area. Puncture wounds. That's very, very different to a dog, which will often go for the underbelly or the back end of an animal, chase it down, worry it, and then it's a less controlled kill. So you can look at, and also the dogs have a different jaw structure to lynx and a different teeth pattern. So the anatomy of Eurasian lynx is very well known. There's very well understood the diameter between a canine teeth, the distance between the canine teeth, the teeth pattern, and that can be married up. This is forensic science, basically, for animals. So yeah, it's looking at a kill scene, and it's looking at measurements of bite size, whether there are puncture marks or not. If there's no puncture marks, it's definitely not a lynx. If there are puncture marks around the neck, it's highly likely to be a lynx. But then on top of that, not just looking at the actual kill site, we will have GPS record. These lynx will be fully monitored at all times. They'll have a collar on them. Every lynx will have a collar. So we'll be able to know. So if farmer A rings us up and says there's a kill site, one of his sheep's killed, or he suspects it was lynx, then the first thing we will do is we will see if any of our lynx were near that sheep, were near his farm that night. So that we can eliminate, if they weren't there, then they can't have killed sheep. So they can be eliminated on that ground. Then we can go and see and have other independent vets assess the actual kill site. So we've got physical evidence of a dead animal, and then we've got overlaid to that the technology that will allow us to see if there's an overlap between that dead animal and any lynx. So that will allow us to be very accurate on identifying lynx, any lynx kills of livestock. And again, we are not saying that lynx don't kill sheep. They do. I've showed you a slide where that shows in almost every country in Europe, there are occasions where lynx kill sheep. But again, it's about context and how many sheep they kill, how much money they bring into the economy, and also how many sheep they kill compared to the fairly massive background mortality. So monitoring. A lot of people, I'm grouping questions here and themes of questions that we've seen on Facebook and social media, which is brilliant. There's loads of chatter going on about it, which is fantastic. It's what we want. So what are we actually looking for? Well, everything. So let me kind of go into the detail. So first of all, we want to see where the lynx go. So how do we do that? Well, they've got collars. So we want to know how far they move around the forest, how often they interact with each other. Can we start to identify territories, for example? How long did it take links in a new area. Imagine there's no links there. These links are going in. There's no links at the moment. So they're going to have to establish a social structure. How long does that take? What evidence, what evidence can we collect? Is there going to be territory points? How quickly do they do that? Does the male overlap both the females? Do they prefer one female to the other? This is the level of detail we're going to be going into. We're going to be examining kill sites. We'll know where the kill sites are because the GPS will stop moving for 5 to 7 days. So we'll be able to go and find out what that animal killed. We'll be able to look at where it killed it. Is it in the center of the forest? Is it near a road? Is it where people have been walking? How are the lynx using this forest? And what's really exciting is we can overlay human land use with lynx use. And so this is the level of detail that we're going to be going into. We're looking at lynx movements, human land use, lynx forest use. Then we'll be looking at the prey. So we'll be doing deer surveys constantly. We'll be looking at deer movement. We're probably also going to collar some deer to look at the increase we anticipate in deer movement. We'll also be looking at mesopredator populations, foxes, badgers. What's the impact on them, if any? Do they cause dispersal? We don't. These are the questions that we want to look at. But there's enough here for 6 or 7 PhD students, no problem. And what is exciting for us is we're inundated with requests from highly qualified people who want to do PhDs on lynx, which is great. And some of these people are young people going through their academic career, and other people are actually people who have been out of academia and want to come back into it for this project, which we find, we're very flattered that people are thinking like that. But these links will be overstudied, and that's the point. And who'll be looking for it? So, what will the team look like? We're often asked that. Well, there'll be a steering group of people. So these will be people from all different backgrounds with different expertise, and including from the farming community. So that'll be a steering group. Then there'll be people working on the ground. There'll be a project manager who will oversee what's going on. Then there'll be project officers who will implement things like education, liaison with stakeholders, data gathering. Then there'll be research students, at least one PhD, possibly 2, but also multiple MSc, MRes students, people doing year-long research projects. So there'll be a lot of people looking at a lot of things. There'll be an academic panel of scientists, conservationists who will look at this data and analyze that data. And this will all form part of the evidence gathering process. So, without going into, well, I do intend to bore you about it because you need to know that we were looking at everything. And that's only the ecological part. The same scrutiny will go to the socio-economic part. So we want to be looking at, is there an increase in footfall in Kielder? Is there an increase in occupancy in hotels? Is there an increase in spend per head in restaurants? Is there an increase in people going to the pub in Kielder? Is there an increase in people coming from outside the area to visit? How far are they traveling? What's the reason? We'll do the same surveys we did in the Harz Mountains. We'll compare against the Harz Mountains. So again, so much detail will be gathered. There'll be no stone left unturned. And if there's an aspect of the project that you, for example, are interested in, or you think we should study, or you want to be part of that data collection, then get in touch. You can do so. We've already had people coming forward saying, I want to volunteer. What data can I collect? I want to do a studentship on it. I want to do my master's on it. I'm planning on moving to the area in the future. Is there a job? So the team will have a core team of people, but it will be underpinned by local volunteers, by researchers, and then I'm backed up by academics, consultants, lawyers, economists, you name it, and that's what it needs. That's what needs to happen. How will these results be communicated? People often ask, and a very good question, how will we find out about what's happening? How will we know it's going well? because we'll tell you everything that we find. There'll be annual reports submitted, and we'll make these public. They'll also be submitted to the government, and we'll give detail about links movements. We'll give detail about some of the socioeconomic impacts that we're seeing. We'll give detail on livestock kills. We'll give detail on all the various elements that people are interested in. That's the point. So I've already talked about how we'll monitor the links themselves. Offspring, I've been asked this a lot of times. It's a really insightful question. How will you monitor the offspring? People say, the female will be collared, but the babies won't. So how will you know where they go? Well, it's very simple. So we just look at other projects in Europe. So what you do is you'll be able to know where the den site is. You'll be able to know how old the kits are, and you'll be able to collar them at the right time. So you put a trap, cage traps out to catch the young lynx, and then you can collar them when they're at the right age. And that's what happens in Germany and Czech Republic and France and Switzerland and pretty much everywhere. It's a well-established protocol, and think about these lynx are going to be so important. They're going to be the first lynx hopefully born in the UK for 1300 years. We want to know everything about them, everything. So hope this show and the monitoring section in our license application is monstrous. It covers, we have a project plan that's 49 pages looking at monitoring, looking at the practicality of the project, and all that will go into the government. Farmer input, we want to consult with farmers. We want to engage with farmers. We don't want any farmers to be worried about this. And I hope even those people who, we don't expect farmers to say they want links back. We don't expect that. No one expects that. Natural England don't expect that. No one, if we, there's no kind of surprises based on the reaction. That's not to say that we can't engage in a meaningful way from both sides, and that both sides can't help each other. Because we want farmers part of our steering group. Now, if you're a farmer and you've got a strong opinion on this, then we should come forward and talk to us about being on the steering group. Because the steering group doesn't mean that you support links. The steering group means that you want to be on there to make sure the Links UK Trust is doing what it said it's going to do. So, sometimes I've heard people say, well, I want to be involved in committees, but I don't want to be seen to be supportive. Let's just be clear. That's not the point of a steering group. A steering group isn't saying you like links. The steering group is saying, I'm interested in looking at the process and the data about this project. So if you're a farmer and you're vehemently opposed to this project, then get in touch. Also, if you're a farmer, and there are farmers who we spoke to who are certainly not vehemently opposed to this project, and you're interested in getting involved, then get in touch as well. We're an open organisation. Please contact us. I know we can't do it at the moment, but we will come and visit you when we can, and we will come and meet face to face when we're allowed to. It's very frustrating that we can't. But after this event tonight, there'll be further announcements from a farmer consultation event. So we'll have we'll try and set up a Zoom meeting with farmers, where we can talk through this stuff. But we want farmers involved in this. I can't state it enough. And it doesn't mean you're not letting the side down. You're not saying you support the project, but you can be in there on the steering group to have a say in the way it goes. And I think we can't really say fairer than that. And again, just to re-emphasize, this is a trial. It is reversible at any time. And I think this is probably the most important sentence I'll say all night. Both for and against links, you'll see the trial as an opportunity to settle the debate. It's been going on for 3 decades. It will go on. It'll keep going on. And if you think that links will be a problem, the trial will show that. It will show it, and that'll be the end of the debate. And we certainly wouldn't push for a reintroduction if the trial is a failure. So please, hopefully we can agree that collecting the data to settle this debate is a good thing for all parties, even if you're opposed to it. Obviously, we're for it, and a lot of other people are for it. And we expect that the data will show what it shows across the rest of Europe. There's nothing unique about the UK apart from we're an island. Links would be here anyway if it wasn't for the English channel. But all parties, both for, against, and neutral, should see this as an opportunity to settle the debate. And I think that's a good thing. So again, a bit of background for those of you who did work on the call on the event last week, and just to overview where we are now and what's the next steps. So you'll know, most of you, that we submitted the first type of application in June 2017. It went to the Secretary of State. It went to cabinet level and government. A lot of people, some people say, "Oh, the project's not taken seriously. It's not, it's not credible. It's not." This went to the top of government. I was personally invited down to Westminster to meet the Secretary of State. These are busy people. So this project went to cabinet level, and no other species license has ever gone to this level. So, rightly so, this is bringing back an apex predator after 1,300 years. And as you all know, it was rejected in November by Michael Gove. The day before the big Brexit vote was planned, he was going to run for Prime Minister. I won't say any more on that. But there was a discordance between the application and the letter that we got back, and it's as though he hadn't read the application. I mean, and there was some comments about it was interesting about we showed our experience by sending in pictures of holding animals. Well, the picture you saw at the start of this email, this presentation went in about rhinos, but it was back. We sent in 9 pages of experience from people in our team, and we used pictures to illustrate the evidence, to provide additional evidence. It wasn't what we relied on, but it was just funny things like that. When we were speaking to Natural England in the run-up to application, we emphasised the fact that we've never needed to fundraise because we have so many amazing, skilled people who want to work for free, and the representatives at Natural England thought that was great. But then in the application, it was criticised. So it was very interesting. The discordance was almost unbelievable. But that's the way it is. Then Brexit happened and COVID, which is all complicated and delayed submitting a second license, and caused complications to every aspect of everybody's life. So I don't need to go into that. We're all sick of hearing about it, but that's the background to where we are now. So the second license is imminent. That we're doing these consultations. This is not the last consultation, and it's important to say these 2 events are not the body of our consultation. We did 12 to 18 months. We did 5 previously in Kielder area. We did 5 village hall events. We went to schools, we visited businesses, we talked to farmers, we had focus groups. We did a huge amount of work, and it's all documented. And this is just building on that and refreshing it, because obviously it's been a little bit of time, and we've not been able to do stuff because of the restrictions. So we want to touch base again and see how people feel, and get some updates on how people feel, and get a new take on it against the backdrop of where we find ourselves now as a country and a world, really. But there was no real expectation that the first apex predator license will succeed. We put it in, and we believe we should have got the license, but we didn't expect to, because that's not how it works. The first whitetail seagull license wasn't accepted. The first beaver license wasn't accepted. So there is a dance to some extent to go through, and we're aware of that. Also, everybody was learning, the government and us. Some of the conversations were bizarre. There was quite a few tumbleweed moments where we asked a question and no one knows the answer. So everyone was learning. However, whilst there was a discordance between the license we put in and the rejection we got, we have addressed the majority of points, tangible points by NE. by Natural England, and we're completing the final elements now. But what's really amazing is that what was seen as extreme 3 years ago is now seen as urgent and mainstream now. The political and public landscape has changed beyond all recognition in terms of ecosystem restoration and the importance of it. To the extent where even the head of Natural England, the chair of Natural England, publicly said that the reintroduction of the inspiring wild lynx would help keep deer numbers down and restore ecosystems. Now, that speaks volumes for where government agencies are thinking. He also said he'd like to see lynx, which has been missing from the UK for 1,300 years, reintroduced to England as part of his organisation's nature restoration plans. That is a big step forward in messages that we've heard before from Natural England, and it's very welcome. And I think it's very welcome by the public, who obviously Natural England represents and work for, basically. Well, what's interesting is as well, lynx have now recolonised on their own, Holland and Belgium, which are at least, I mean, Holland in particular is much more is more developed than here. It has less wild places than the UK. Lynx have come back, and there's no panic. There's no pitchforks out. There's just excitement. They've come back to great fanfare, and it's celebrated by the Dutch people, who are proud that this predator's back. And again, that shows the way the world is moving. And across other parts of Europe, you'll hear in the news, wolves have returned to huge parts of the range. And again, it's turned out they've been living in a lot of places that people didn't even know. So the world has changed a lot. Climate change and loss of biodiversity is front page news. It didn't used to be. Certainly wasn't when we submitted a license. People like Greta Thunberg have done an amazing job of increasing the profile. We've now got Extinction Rebellion. Even Attenborough now, we used to have those glossy BBC documentaries, which, in my opinion, misrepresented the natural world. I'm fairly well traveled. I've seen rainforests and what's happening to them, and it's not about showing that nature, the happy clappy version of nature. But that's what we were being shown. We're not anymore. Even the TV broadcasters are now, caveat most of these programs with, you've seen some nice pretty pictures of a tuna, bluefin tuna, but the reality is there's none left in the sea. So the whole messaging around it has changed, and people are more willing to highlight these issues, the uncomfortable truth of the world, the state of the world that we all share. There's an urgency now as well, whether that transpires into tangible efforts, and whether it's actually going to be too late anyway. But there is an urgency, and like I said before, climate change will make COVID look like a bank holiday weekend, but that's another story. So lynx will help to mitigate climate change. It's not a silver bullet. I'm not saying it's going to solve climate change, not in any way, but lynx will definitely contribute to healthy ecosystems, without doubt. There's a lot of talk about tree planting, and tree planting schemes without apex predators are not very well conceived. Once the trees get above the guard, the deer nibble the top off. That's the end of that. I've seen entire stands of newly planted Scots pines, deciduous trees, oak trees, all gone in a matter of days. Thousands and thousands of pounds and effort and backbreaking work just wiped out by deer coming through. So you can't grow forest without predators. You can't grow. You can't have natural forest without predators. It just doesn't work. And it's against all these contexts and completely changed political and public perceptions that this license will go in. What are the big differences and improvements since the first license? The first one is the habitat risk assessment. So that point was highlighted by Natural England as not being in there. Although we did fill out a risk assessment that looked at this these issues, but it wasn't presented in the way that they, after the event, told us to present it. So fair enough, we'll do that. And this work's done by living with us tonight, but unfortunately can't be. He's the managing director of a leading ecological consultancy, Bioscan. He's got 26 years of professional experience, and he's worked on development, conservation projects at all scales, from major
You put developments and rail infrastructure to long-term habitat species monitoring for Natural England and also the National Trust. So Dominic's in the team for environmental regulation and ecological impact assessment. Now, he spoke at length about the work he's been doing, and he's been very busy working for us. So if you want to hear it from him, then look at the first consultation event where he speaks at great length about what he did. But basically, I'll give an overview because I don't want to repeat what he said. But the red line here is the project area. This is Newcastleton here. This is Whitelaw up here. And the project area was identified using forest cover. But Dominic's job was to look at habitats regulation assessment, to look at how and what the impacts, if any, would be on lynx, on protected sites, Ramsar sites, SPAs, SACs. Are there likely significant effects? Are there adverse effects on the integrity? The key point that Dominic's shown, and that will go into the license, is that the assessment's been done, and that there are no major risks or significant risks to either protected species or protected sites in the area. And but please, he'll explain it much better than me because this is his area, it's not mine. But the conclusion was that this is not going to damage the current protected sites in the area. But arguably, it will enhance them, and this will not damage the current protected species in the area in Kielder, which are rightly cherished by the local population. And again, in many cases, it will actually benefit them. And again, Dominic was keen to stress, as I have done, and this is the third time I say it, and it won't be the last time I say it, reversibility. It is a trial. So if we see unexpected impacts, then we can stop it at any time. We know where the links are, and we can catch them fairly quickly. We have, I've got over 500 game capture experience under my belt, and other people involved in this team. So the vets that we'll use are highly experienced in animal capture, animal sedation. So these links can be rounded up at any point. I'm just going to go back because there's a key point I didn't make there. The red line is a project area. So we want and we expect the links to stay within that site, stay within the forest boundaries. And it's not an arbitrary line, it's based on forest. The links are forest specialists, they're going to be at very low density. So there's no expectation that they will leave this project area. However, if they do, they will be recaptured. And if an animal continues to leave the area, it will be removed from the trial. Rest assured, and again, we have a 49-page project plan with details, exit strategies, trigger points. We don't want the links to leave the project area. We want to study the project area. That's why it's a project area. We don't want the links going everywhere. But like I say before, links don't go on holiday. They're going to be in a forest, which they like. We've shown you data, the papers before. They like forest of any age and type, and it's stuffed full of deer. So why would they go? And there's no social pressure to leave. So we fully anticipate, and this makes strong biological sense, that links will stay within the project area. But I won't elaborate any more on this section, but this was a section identified as missing from, and it was the main bit missing from the initial application. It'll be in there now. We've also halved the number of links. So we're going to just use 3 links, 1 male, 2 females. And that mimics the natural population structure of a lynx population. So males typically have a range that overlaps more than 1 female. So we want to mimic that. And again, all those 3 links will be collared for the full duration of the trial, and the offspring will be collared for the duration of the trial. But what's really great is more scientific evidence to support the application. Johnson and Greenwood we talked about. There's a link to it. Click on it, read it. Hetherington et al. Before that, all telling the same message. Kielder, part of the Southern Uplands, is a great site for lynx, and we've already been through the in onerous detail the scoping study that we did to pick Kielder, and that wasn't predetermined. The Johnson Greenwood paper was 3 years after the work we did. So, you know, it wasn't a predetermined. We just wanted to find the best pilot site, and it turned out to be Kielder. Our organisation has been strengthened. We've got new people working on the team, people from different backgrounds. It's weird. Conservation isn't hardly anything about animals, actually. It's a lot. It's all about people and economics and legalities and all those kind of aspects. It's very little to do with the actual animals themselves. But we strengthen the team in various aspects of that, and Dominic's a key part of that. We also have really good environmental law advisors on this who work for the United Nations Harmony for Nature teams, which is great. And what's really, really good, that we're really pleased about this, is that other conservation organisations, some of which are historically quite conservative, are also starting linked consultations. That's brilliant. That shows how mainstream the idea has become. So, you know, the more people working on links, the more people talking about links, the more people studying links or the feasibility of links, the better from our point of view. And the better from a trial point of view, because there's more data that will be collected. But we want this to work for the people of Kielder. You know, they call the Harts Mountain the kingdom of the lynx. Why can't Kielder be the kingdom of the lynx? Well, all the benefits of that will bring massive benefits. We've seen it firsthand. If you ever get a chance, if you like German beer and food and culture, go to the Harts Mountains. It's fantastic. It's a very exciting place. It's a vibrant place. And when I first went to Kielder, the site that always sticks with me is when I looked at that primary school next to a dilapidated youth hostel, which closed down and is falling to pieces. And you know, it's like you've got these young people who we want to have aspirations for, staring at a symbol of rural deprivation, and that was upsetting to see. You know, when I go into a local pub or restaurant and I'm the only person in there, that also concerns me. I remember when we had a BBC film crew with us, and he wanted to speak to people, and he said, "There's no people to speak to." And so, yeah, we want this to work for the people of Kielder. It's an amazing place. It's one of the wildest places in the UK. You know, the whole Dark Skies initiative is fantastic. This whole idea of, you know, it's a place to get away from it all, to experience some wilderness. That's amazing. That's a blessing, and you want to work with that, not against that. And we think that Lynx is kind of bang on brand for what the direction Kielder seems to be taking, and the businesses seem to be going in Kielder, which is good. And a lot of people have been in touch with us after the first consultation, echoing those sentiments. You know, again, I didn't say too much about it earlier on the farming section, but you know, it's no secret now that the farming system will be completely turned on its head. The subsidy system as it is going, and it will go fairly soon. So environmental grants for farmers are going to be the way to go, and links will feed into that. So links could help farmers get environmental grants. You know, there's no secret that the government made it clear that the number of livestock on the hills and on farms will be reduced hugely. So grants for farmers, links could feed into that. Talked about jobs, talked about local businesses, and I should say there will be a local business consultation for people who want to get involved and promote their businesses and develop ideas. So there'll be further consultation on that. If you want to get involved and volunteer, and I've had a lot of you do that, get in touch. admin@linksuk.org. I'll talk a little bit more about that later. There's a website as well, www.linksuk.org. So, you know, there's a contact section on there, there's information on there. You know, we're a fairly high profile project. You can find us if you want to find us. You can find out how to contact us. So please do. We've been very, very encouraged by the level of engagement. And that's whether you're for or against. We had nearly 50 questions on the last session, which is amazing. And I should say, and I've not said it till now, some people have made a criticism that this isn't consultation. But let me just look at some of the numbers here and some of the process. So for a start, we have asked for questions from people from the local community. And we've prioritized those questions, and we've answered every single one in the last session, and we'll do so again in this one. So that is the definition of consultation. We ask your question, and we answer them, and then we follow up. So yeah, it's not. I don't like sitting behind a computer screen where I can't see anybody and you can't interact. I don't enjoy that as much as the face-to-face event, which is much more for me. Personally, I like it, but then a lot of people like the online way of doing it as well. But the reality is, this is a well-established way of doing consultations now. This is the way a lot of organisations from multi-sectors are doing it. But we ask for your questions and we answer them. That's consultation. But also in terms of the number of people reached, I mean, we did community events. They were always well attended. But you're talking, I think the biggest one was maybe like 80 to 100 people in the first one in Kielder primary school. But then there was maybe 40 or 50 in the other ones, which is great attendance in rural areas. But last time, 400 people viewed that presentation, and the peak was 200 people at any one point viewing the presentation. So actually the reach, and we've been pleased with that, is actually greater than what we would get from a face-to-face, because people don't have to arrange childcare, they don't have to leave the home, they don't have to travel. So yeah, this is, whether we like it or not, this is the way consultations are done, and we've looked at different models and we think we're following best practice. But this is not the last consultation event. There'll be more that you'll hear about, and you'll see it on the Facebook page we've got, and in the local media as well. So what are the next steps? So farmer consultation. So we'll be shortly. So if you're a farmer in the area, keep watching our Facebook. You'll obviously hear about it anyway on the grapevine, and we'll invite farmers to a Zoom session where we can have a Q&A and a consultation. We can take questions and answers, and also get your ideas, and also ask you what would make you feel more comfortable. That might be nothing. There might be nothing that we can do, or there might be that you're against, but you wouldn't be if there was certain things that you want to see. So tell us. Then there'll also be a tourism consultation for local businesses who work on tourism. We want to work with these people, but already making plans with certain businesses to do projects. But we want to be inclusive as possible, get a range of views on these ideas, and then a wider stakeholder consultation, looking at different stakeholders in the area. And I will say again, we did a big national stakeholder consultation a few years ago where we asked for written responses from, I think it was well over 150 organisations, and we got a really good response back as well. So again, whilst a bit of time has passed, we have done this is not the entirety of our consultation. There's been a lot before, and there'll be a lot after this. So Q&A, and I can't thank you enough. People who get in touch and take the time to ask us really good questions. So this one's from Tarset Archive Group. So thank you for this. Last time we queried the credentials of Overden's important research paper, yet this paper is clearly referenced in the preferred research by Johnson Greenwood, which links UK Trust claim proved Kielder the best location for release in England. Johnson and Greenwood clearly don't say that without massive qualification. They also refer to Kielder and Southern Uplands as a single habitat unit, not just Kielder. They conclude ecological feasibility for reintroduction in England is not certain, though possibly not completely unfeasible. Much more study is needed before a trial is proposed. Can you tell us why we chose to make the claim it did? So I'm not sure what claim they were saying that we made, but basically on the Ovenden paper, I'll just read direct from what they said, because we said it wasn't applicable to Kielder, and this is the reason why. So I'll just read it. In contrast to the Hetherington et al. Paper, our case study was confined geographically to the political boundary of Scotland. This was to reflect the devolution of environmental policy and decision making to the Scottish Government, along with the recent developments of a non-statutory Scottish Code for Conservation Translocations. As such, it is of note that the true extent of Kielder Forest was underrepresented in our model, as contiguous woodland areas within England were omitted, and links were prevented from crossing into potentially suitable habitat in England. Should a modelling exercise be conducted for the purpose of providing the evidence to justify a specific imminent planned reintroduction to Scotland, it is unlikely that the full extent of Kielder Forest will be included. So that kind of answers why we, and I hope you don't think it was dismissive, but why we didn't place a lot of weight behind the Ovenden paper, because simply the Ovenden paper didn't consider 2/3 of Kielder Forest. We're looking at the whole forest, and you know, there's straight there, it's in black and white. Boundary of Scotland. Well, links don't know where the political boundary of Scotland is. So if you're looking at, if you're trying to impose biological feasibility using a political boundary, then that is a serious flaw. And if you can't include the entirety of a forest in analysis, in my scientific opinion, and I was a senior lecturer in conservation for 8.5 years, you shouldn't, you can't assess the viability of a forest unless you look at the entirety of that forest. And I think they concede that point. So that was why. Whereas the Johnson and Greenwood paper, and it's not one's better than the other, it's just Johnson and Greenwood considered the entirety of Kielder. So I think it's much more representative of the area. So it's as simple as that. But I don't know what claim we made. You know, Kielder came out as a really good site that came out as with the most habitat in England from the Johnson and Greenwood paper. Hetherington et al. It came out as a really good site. And again, we say all the time that Kielder is part of the Southern Uplands, so we're not separating anything out here. Just that our project area is Kielder, but you know, that's not to say that in the future, should a full reintroduction go ahead, that you know, sites in the borders in Dumfries and Galloway aren't considered as part of that Southern Upland continuum. So I hope that answers. I'm going into a lot of detail there, but I hope that answers the question. And this is also from Tarset Archive Group, commenting on Johnson and Greenwood's paper. Truly and O'Ryan stressed that a decision on release cannot rely on ecological data alone, must rigorously model the socio-economic dimension and the impacts of key stakeholders of that release is to be successful. As a result of attitudes arising from our first proposal, farmers were vilified, and yet they, like Forest England, are key stakeholders in the area whose support is essential for any introduction. Can you tell us how you intend to approach farming and forestry this time? So I'll just go to the first point. Obviously, that's just backed up exactly what I've spent most of this session talking about. Of course, we need to look at the socio-economic dimensions. We completely agree that's a key part of our application. And the reason why I'm talking to you today is because we know we can't just rely on ecological feasibility. If it's just ecological feasibility, there's no point doing consultation. So we're in entire agreement with Tarset Archive Group on that point. Farmers were vilified. They weren't vilified by us. Again, there might have been a attempt in the media, because you know, this is what newspapers do, isn't it? There has to always be a for and against, and a bit of conflict for it to be a story, I guess. And I guess a lot of it, you know, is media driven. But if farmers are vilified by the media, then you know, take it up with them. But you know, they weren't vilified by us. And I've told you how we want to approach the farming community. We already have had farmers meetings. We already have had public meetings. We spoke to loads of farmers, loads of them. I've shook farmers' hands. I've had heated debates with them. I've had a laugh with some of them. I've had meetings in the pub with them. You know, we're going to do further farming consultations. And forestry commission, forestry stakeholders, not just forestry commission, there's other forestry operations going on in the area. And again, as I said, there's going to be further consultation, but these stakeholders were all contacted last time for the first application, and it'll all be followed up for the second. So again, I think we're in agreement with the Tarset Archive Group on the fact that this isn't. We must model socioeconomic dimension. I spent probably 10 minutes talking about the monitoring of those issues. So yeah, another one from Tarset 2050 CIC. A fellow CIC, we're also a CIC, not a charity. We gather that people can support Links UK Trust Project by donating through its website. Can you tell us when and where you will be publishing full account, how those donations are being spent? So yeah, we have a website, which is great, and you can go on it and you can donate if you want to, or you can look at it and not donate. It's entirely up to you. But as if Tarset 2050 or CIC, they'll know as well as I do that they're very strict accounting procedures for CIC, which are, for those of you who don't know, community interest companies. They're set up to be not-for-profits with asset locks and whatever else, and the government structure that was set up to make it easier to do good causes without having to have a big panel of trustees and whatever else. But there are strict accounting rules, and we're fully compliant with them. We pay chartered accountants to do our accounts, and they publish them online at Companies House, which is exactly the same as Tarset 2050, I guess. So yeah, they're publicly available. You can go onto Companies House and see them, and they fully comply with the government criteria. So yeah, but yeah, if you want to support our project, then go to the website. You can. We're doing various fundraising schemes as most people are. It's always been a tough year for any NGO, any cause. So yeah, you can certainly donate through our website, and our accounts are published. What do you estimate to be the overall funding required for this? From Tarset 2050. The funding required for Links to our project, and apart from donations, how do you intend to raise it? So the overall funding, it will be in. I'm not going to give an exact figure because there's still a bit of consultation work to do, and there's still a bit of fine tuning on the actual number of people on the ground. But I've given you a broad overview. But as you can imagine, if you change one person or one person's role in that, then it has knock-on effects to the overall budget. So I'm not going to give you pounds, shilling, and pence, but it will be probably between it'll be over £200,000 anyway, and we'll raise that from donors, and we have people who are keen on our project who are wealthy who will support the project should we need it, which is great. So yeah, but be rest assured, if you alluded to the point, we need funding to do the project, of course, and that'll be a requirement of the license, but we will only do the project with the funding, but we have access to the funding. So we're kind of ready to go, really. So yeah, hope that answers that question. But the exact budget, you'll understand, won't be published until we submit the license, and because it might change right till the day that we submit the license. Because, for example, we might have a volunteer who could do some of the work that we would ordinarily pay for, or we might slightly tweak the number of people who we need on the ground if we have more PhD students or whatever else, and looking at people's petrol expenses and everything. So yeah, but it'll be at least £200,000. Dave Oakes in Northumberland. Seems to be that during the first webcast of the minimum farming and livestock in the actual forest itself. Kielder Forest has 30 plus farms and its boundaries plus numerous other farms directly bordering the forest. Figures supplied by Forestry England. It also stated during the first webcast that Trust expects livestock predation to be absolutely minimal. It's only based on the Hearts model rather than the Norwegian experience. If livestock grazing is right up to the forest, that is ensured it's going to be as vulnerable as in Norway, where it grazes in the woodland itself. So some good questions there. So on the livestock stuff, we know that, and the 30 plus farms, I'm assuming, is that, I don't know whether you mean within and bordering, but I don't know the exact how you split that up. But basically we know that Kielder is surrounded by farmland, and we know that there is some farming activity within the Kielder area. However, our project area is predominant, as you've seen from the red from the map we put up earlier, is forest. It's not farmland. So whilst the Kielder area itself may have farms in it, and it does have farms in it, our project area has a very limited number, a very low number of farms in it. But obviously around the forest there is farmland. But on the next point about based on the Hearts model, it's not based on the Hearts model, and again, I've really shown that at length. The tables there with all of different countries on, it's based on about 20 countries. It's certainly not based on the Hearts model, although the Hearts model is a case study, but that's not what our conclusions are based on. And we discussed the Norwegian experience at length. The last point about grazing right to the forest, that is very different to grazing within the forest, because, as I say, lynx are ambush predators who hunt on game trails, but deer game trails are not out in open fields. So it's very different. Grazing up to the forest is very different than grazing in it. Very, very different indeed. And the encounter rate of lynx and sheep at the edge of the forest is nowhere near as high as it would be if the sheep were put in and driven into the forest. So hope Dave that those clears up those 3 points, but very, very good insightful questions. Thank you. Next, this is from Dave as well. You've stated several times that lynx prey mainly on deer and are not a threat to other species. However, a trawl of Google leads to several lynx sites that seem to contradict this. One even states 75% of their diet is made up of voles. Can you please reiterate what the main diet is and how they will affect other fauna in the forest and the locals who are very concerned about squirrels and pine martens? Again, as from the discussion this question came up last time. So please look at the answers we gave, that Dominic gave on that, because it all comes under the kind of the habitat and environmental risk assessments that we've done. But on the diet, first of all, it's great that you've done some research, Dave, and you're having a look out there, but 75% of the diet is made up of voles. I'm pretty sure you're looking at Iberian lynx data there. Iberian lynx are much smaller. They feed on small mammals. And so I'm pretty sure, well, I'm 100% sure that that'll be Iberian lynx. Voles do not make up a significant part of Eurasian lynx diet because it's simply, they're a different animal. They're a bigger animal. They're a deer specialist. Then, which leads me on to answering your first point. So roe deer is basically, sometimes up to 95% of the diet is roe deer. But they will take other things. They will take the odd fox. They will take the odd badger. They might take the odd squirrel. But the issue is that they will enhance the whole health of the forest in Kielder, which will benefit squirrels and benefit pine martens. And in fact, when you speak to people in Europe, I think it's a crazy idea to reintroduce pine martens without any apex predators. Because, for example, pine martens, if you look at capercaillies in Scotland, pine martens are a major threat to capercaillie populations up there because there's no predator to keep the pine martens in check. So I have a conversation with European biologists all the time about this, and they're always they always laugh at our fascination with putting pine martens back, these mesopredators, without any top-down control, because pine martens are bird predators and are red squirrel predators. And I'll say this 100% guarantee that a pine marten is a huge threat to a red squirrel compared to a lynx. But this is all about balance, and this is what lynx will bring. This is from John. The 5-year trial, by what do you project the population will have increased? How will any else be monitored? Presumably radio collared. So I've covered that, John. Yeah, the lynx will be, babies will be monitored. We expect there'll probably be 1, possibly 2 breeding events. So, the lynx have got to be put out there. They've got to be established. They've got to find territories. Then they've got to find each other. So that will take at least a year out, we expect. And then, they've got to have a gestation period, rear the young, to independence, which again, you know, you're talking another year. Then you've got a following breeding season, and the process starts again. So within a 5-year trial, we would expect 2 full breeding events per female, but that's not to say that any of those events will be successful, particularly in a new site. But that's something that we want to look at. So yeah, good question. But the offspring will be monitored very closely, and we're fascinated to see how they get on. And this is another very good question. In the event of a male succumbing to a road accident or other fatal injury, how will this be addressed? I bring another male in. Well, that's exactly right, yeah. Because we want this to be a natural system. So in the wild, in population, if a territorial male died, then another male will come in and take his place. So that's exactly what will happen here, and that'll be written into our license. And we know we want 3 animals there in a natural structure at all times. So yeah, but great questions, insightful questions. Thank you. This is from Sam. Regarding the welfare of the lynx, would the project be abandoned if one or more of the animals died? Would there be any intervention if one of the animals got sick? So I think if one of the animals died, then we would look to replace those animals, and that would be written into our license. We'd obviously be very, very keen to look at the reasons for mortality, and we'd want to be reassured that the reasons for mortality could be reduced or wouldn't happen again. So, you know, this is not about just putting lynx back without looking at the reasons for any mortality. But you know, there shouldn't be mortality given the extent of the forest, the low number of roads, and the high amount of deer. Would there be an intervention if any one of the animals got sick? Yes, there would. Again, you know, spent a lot of my time working in Africa, and you know, there is no wild place left. There is no, you know, nowhere without touched by the hand of man, unfortunately. You know, the biggest game parks in the world are managed, and if they find a sick elephant or a rhino or a lion, they more often than not every time, but more often than not, in my experience, they treat it. So, you know, if we find an animal injured or sick, then the GPS collar data should show us that, and we will intervene if we need to from a welfare point of view. You know, I think hopefully people can understand why we would do that. And again from Sam, is there anything in place to deter poachers, bounty hunters? Well, you know, consultation is part of this, and engagement is part of this. We want people to want lynx to be there. And all I say is in other countries where they've brought them back, like in the Harz Mountains and other places, the lynx have been welcomed and have been seen as an asset. We want the Kielder community to effectively self-police the lynx. We want them to cherish the lynx. We want them to value them. And so that's a big part of our job. You know, prevention is better than cure, I guess, is the way to deal with this. But you know, also these lynx are going to be world famous. You know, the interest in this project is enormous internationally as well as in the UK. And you know, these lynx will be personalities. They will be known. They'll have names. You know, we've even talked to local school about naming the lynx, and that's something that we want to do. So, you know, I always tell people about Cecil the lion, the guy who shot that lion. It ruined his life and all his family's lives, and that will do forever. And if he could have his time back again, he wouldn't have pulled that trigger. So these lynx will be monitored. We'll know where they are at all times. We'll know when they die, and we'll be able to find out how they die. I'll be able to find out the area they died in, and it will be, you know, a police issue. And rest assured, we will do everything we can to make sure if there is any persecution, which we don't think there will be, that it's followed through and people are prosecuted for that. But we don't think it will come to that, because the whole point is to prevent anyone wanting to do that, and for the community to prevent anyone wanting to do that. You know, we know some key community people, and you know, it's a small place, and we want the community to protect the lynx. And yeah, but great questions. Another one for you, Sam. has there been an environmental evaluation of the impact of foxes dispersed into wider areas as stated in the last consultation? Will this perhaps carry more persecution of foxes? We definitely want to look at the impact on mesopredators. So, you know, we will look at fox populations. I don't think there'll be huge displacements, but there will certainly be, you know, some predation and some impact. We need to find out what that is, and obviously we hope that doesn't lead to more persecution of foxes. We wouldn't expect it to, but you know, there's going to be a lot of people monitoring all aspects of wildlife in this area, which I think would protect. You know, the more eyes, the more cameras, the more interest. In my experience, working all over the world on persecuted wildlife, the more people watching and taking interest, the less likely there is to be persecution. So, monitoring is actually, you know, a good friend of mine who worked in rhino conservation for 30 years. So the best way to protect rhinos is to monitor them and to make them individuals. So, yeah. But yeah, in terms of foxes, we'll look at the population and we'll look at that impact, and then that's something that will come out in the study, hopefully. But great question. Andrew from Northumberland, what funding do you have in place to monitor and control the links? So we've covered that for the duration of the scheme, and D for the natural life expectancy of links. So as I said, this is a trial. At the end of 5 years, the government may decide to round the links up and remove them. We don't expect that to happen, but we don't know what will happen after 5 years. That'll be a government decision. But you know, this is a high-profile project. There's a lot of interest in it, and you know, we should be able to get the funding that we need. And showing funding in place will be a key part of getting a license. Again, so Andrew, again, what funding do you have to compensate farmers who lose stock to links? So again, we anticipate that number to be small. You know, 120 links in Hearts Mountains comes to less than £1,000 a year. But you know, we will have a buffer and a compensation pot. So yeah, there'll be certainly more than enough funds to cover any eventuality. Although, as we said all along, we don't expect links to kill a significant amount of livestock. Andrew, again, a few from Andrew here. How do you propose to monitor the offspring? We've covered that one. We'll GPS collar them as discussed. One of your supporting metrics was a low number of sheep killed per links in the Hearts region. You discounted the high kill ratio in Norway. Have you considered the amount of sheep in the Hearts compared to Northumberland? So we haven't discounted the high kill ratio in Norway. We talk about it in almost every interview. We accept it. It was the first bit of data that we talked about, 18,932 sheep. It's not something that we hide away from. We use it to demonstrate, and every time the NSA or the NFU mention Norway, it strengthens our case, because it is, as you can see from that data, and it is unambiguous. So please look at that table again. Norway is the exception that proves the rule. So it's not about comparing Hearts to Northumberland. It's about comparing the experience across Europe to Northumberland, which is what we've done. And looking at the threat from links across Europe. We haven't just looked at the Hearts. We've considered nearly 20 countries. So hopefully that answers that question. But you know, good, insightful, detailed question, which is great. What is the aim? This from Graham. What's the aim of data gathering? Are 3 links enough to show either positive effects or any negative issues? We talked at length about what we're going to monitor, so I won't repeat that, but everything basically. And are 3 links enough? That's an interesting question. We don't know. I mean, it could be that, you know, perhaps National England suggests we should bring more links in for a trial. We don't know, but our license will state 3, and there'll be a discussion, I guess, with the relevant agencies about whether that's viable for a trial, or you know, do we need more links? But yeah, a really good, thoughtful question, that, Graham. Thank you. This is from Sandra. As far as I know, there are vast wild areas in Europe, so links can roam as far as Russia and China. Are links territorial? Do they follow their easy prey? Yeah, they're definitely territorial. Said in the last event, last talk, you can go and look at that. The territory sizes vary massively, from like 20 square kilometers up to 200 square kilometers, even more. So they're definitely territorial. The deer specialists, they don't follow prey. They don't go on like like for example, like wolves will follow caribou or bison. Lynx don't do that. They have a territory and they have deer inside that territory and they prey on them. They don't follow prey. And the evidence is that they go for deer all across Europe, where there are potentially easier prey. Predators are very specialist predators like lynx are very fussy. They have a technique for killing certain types of prey, and they use that. They don't really sway away from that. They're not like they're not like meat hoovers. You know, not everything they see is food to them. So yeah, they're very specific ambush predators, and they'll certainly go after the roe deer. Britain is, this is from Sandra as well. Britain's a small island, and what will happen when they breed and spread after the funding for these projects ends and they spread through all the adjoining forestry areas? Well, that's a hypothetical question. That's not in our hands because the government will decide that. The government will decide whether the project ends or not, or whether it's augmented, or whether it trial. Maybe they'll decide to collect more data. Maybe they'll say we want 5 years more of a trial. Maybe they'll say we want a full reintroduction. And maybe they'll say catch all the lynx now. We don't want to go any further. We just can't answer that. But again, the scientific evidence is clear. Read the literature, read the papers we referenced. Britain can support a viable population of lynx, and there's no scientific debate on that, really. There's no contradiction on that or conflict on that. Everyone kind of agrees. Another question from Sandra. What were done to protect other rare wildlife from lynx? Surely population of ground nesting forest edge birds, black grouse hen harriers will be in danger. Not to mention red squirrels in one of the last strongholds. We've discussed red squirrels. The threat to lynx is very, 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 very small. Certainly when you compare it to things like pine martins, which are red squirrel specialists. Surely ground nesting birds. So a lot of these species nest in open areas. Lynx don't occupy open areas. And again, Dominic talked at length about hen harriers and grouse and things in the other event. But yeah, the risk assessments that we're carrying out show that they won't have a negative effect; they'll have a positive effect because foxes certainly do feed on black grouse and ground nesting birds. So if lynx catch foxes, then that reduces the density of foxes, which should benefit ground nesting birds. But that is something that we'll obviously want to monitor. And we can work with bird groups in the area and local wildlife groups in the area to hopefully all work together to collect the data on this picture, to monitor the squirrels, to monitor the hen harriers. Lynx will also probably help reduce hen harrier persecution, because there'll be more people looking in the area. There'll be more cameras out. There'll be more of a protective presence in the area. So yeah, hopefully they'll benefit. Will lynx pose a risk to wild goats in Northumberland, Cheviot borderlands, please? Lynx could certainly are capable of taking a goat. But again, come back to the data. In areas in Europe where there's things like ibex and wild goats, lynx don't seem to prey on them. They're hardest to catch. They're generally out in the open, and they're not where lynx are. They're in rocky open terrain, which is not lynx habitat. So a lynx could kill a wild goat, but we certainly don't think they'd pose a significant risk to that population. Thanks for that, Anna. How will they be contained within a certain area, and what threat are they to stop? So we've covered extensively the threat to stop. How will they be contained? Well, they won't be physically contained in terms of they could leave the project area, but once they do, we will bring them back quickly. And again, this is all written up in our project plan. So we'll know when the lynx leave the project area, and we'll be tracking that lynx very closely, and that will trigger a response from us to bring that animal back. Probably within 24 hours. Or certainly attempt to get that animal within 24 hours. If that animal continues to go outside that area, then it will be removed from the trial. So there won't be a fence around it, but there'll be a kind of project hypothetical fence that will be triggered if a lynx leaves the project area. But great questions again, insightful and interesting, and clearly for people who know the local area and are thinking about the local area. So that's great. And then we'll finish with some questions from further afield. Obviously, we prioritise the Northumberland borders, Kielder people first, because this is local consultation predominantly, but some great questions here from outside. So Rob from Roxburghshire, I hope I said that right. Could you tell me where the free lynx will come from? Presumably you cannot release zoo animals, so they will be caught in the wild and shipped here. Yeah, we wouldn't use zoo animals for this. We're as an organisation, we're anti zoo, anti captivity, and me personally, definitely anti captivity. The lynx will come from Sweden, where there'll be wild caught. There'll be, in inverted commas, professional lynx. There'll be adult lynx. They'll know how to kill roe deer. They'll know how to avoid people. They'll have proved to survive to adulthood in the wild in Sweden, and they'll do the same job here. So yeah, we wouldn't use zoo animals, and they'll be caught from Sweden and brought here with obviously all the relevant paperwork. And we have a fantastic, highly experienced veterinary team on board. Will do a lot of paperwork with the relevant government agencies, which is great. This from Mark, Perthshire. When considering the lynx release program, would you consider promoting use of livestock guardian dogs to placate sheep farmers worried about loss of livestock? Yeah, we talked about this in the last event, and we'll talk about it now again. Yeah, guardian dogs could be very useful. So could other animals such as llamas. Very effective, even against mountain lions in South America. And I know sheep farmers in Scotland who use llamas to protect their lambs from foxes during the lambing season. But yeah, guardian dogs could be used, although we don't think they're needed. But it's certainly in the longer term, it could be something that we think about. But we don't think that they'll be needed. We've shown the evidence of the very, very small risk to livestock, but it's certainly an option that we could look at. John in Hertfordshire, lynx is a wonderful looking cat. How do you think you can introduce lynx back to the UK, which is ideal and doesn't cross paths with people? Lynx, like I say, they're the ghost cat. They're in forests and you don't see them unless you're very lucky. You'll see evidence of them, which is very exciting. But yeah, they avoid people. That's why they're the perfect apex predator to bring back. We're not here advocating wolves or bears. This is lynx, and they don't cross paths with people. If you see a lynx, you're extremely fortunate. It'll be a wildlife encounter of a lifetime if you see a wild lynx. It'll be very exciting. And again, you get that excitement without the risk, because they're not going to do anything to you, but you get that buzz of seeing an apex predator in its natural environment. Rob in Essex, do you intend to monitor any potential offspring in the same way as other lynx? Yeah. Wishing you every success, by the way. Thank you, Rob. Yeah, we definitely will. We talked about monitoring offspring, so that's fine. And Rob, again, if your application is successful, hopefully, can you video the releases so everyone can see it? There will be so much interest in this. We already have pretty much every major news outlet has already contacted us asking for access to this. But the priority will be to do this properly, to make sure the lynx have the best chance of successfully finding their feet in the area, and a soft release will carry out. So it's, we won't just dump them in Kielder. They'll have an holding enclosure. They will leave when they're ready. So it'll be a well thought out, slow process. But of course we will disseminate information to people. There's so much interest and people want to find out about it. So yeah, we definitely will. You'll definitely be able to see updates of it and footage of it. I think this is the last two. Membership. If lynx have been introduced to the UK, and Scottish wildcats have also been introduced, along with possible other introduction of species, will carnivores be competing with each other for prey? Should be reintroduced in original species at the same release sites and balance? What care should be taken to avoid genetic problems? So yeah, good questions there. I'll come back to the same point. We need balanced ecosystems. And just on wildcats, I love the Scottish wildcat. God, I think it's the most beautiful animal and deserves every effort to save it in the wild. You know, actively involved in that. I've been working on wildcats for nearly 10 years. So yeah, but wildcats and lynx don't compete for prey. Wildcats will take small mammals and birds. Lynx don't, so there's no competition there. And actually, it's really cool when you see healthy forests in Europe. You see on the same camera trap a lynx walk past, and then I've seen cases where like like half an hour later, wildcats walk past. That's cool, and they avoid and respect each other, and they don't compete. You know, a lynx wouldn't want to take on a wildcat. There's a risk to it losing its eyes or getting injured, and it's not a, you know, it's not a fight that they want to pick. But lynx will benefit wildcats by creating forest regeneration, which provide more food and small mammals. So yeah, it's all part of balance. In terms of herbivores, absolutely. If there's herbivores that need to be reintroduced, reintroduce them. Watervoles seem to be a key one in Kielder as well, which is obviously welcome. So yeah, absolutely. It's not just about predators; it's about bringing balance. And inbreeding, it's not going to be an issue for the trial, but for a full reintroduction, obviously we would need more animals, but then that would be driven by the government on the number of animals they want us to bring in. But I'm a geneticist. My background is genetics. Like I say, with the bustards, and I've looked at small population management for most of my academic career and published widely on that. So looking at genetic issues is a key. It's a key area in the long term if we get to that stage. And Paul from Bedfordshire, do you have any evidence of the economic benefits of introducing key missing UK wildlife? These lynx, I live in the south, but will specifically travel to Kielder to see however there's slight chance of wild lynx. My personal preference would be to stay local. So could this be ecotourism? Could this ecotourism provide a realistic new revenue source, B&Bs, local residents, farmers, etc., and offset any perceived incurred costs? Well, you kind of summed it up there, really, Paul. Yes, and yes. So it's great that you would be willing to come up to visit the area. That's what we expect, and that's what the evidence from the places shows. And it's great that you would also want to enjoy your stay locally, which would benefit people in the local area, which is great. And of course, we've shown, you know, the cost to the potential negative impacts of livestock predation, which is very low, is dwarfed by the massive benefits, economic benefits. So yeah, it would definitely offset by many orders of magnitude. So yeah, brilliant questions. So that leaves me to say is thank you so much. You know, really appreciate your time. Really appreciate your thoughts, your questions, and we'll be following up with a few more sessions on this. So please tell people about that. If you're interested in getting involved, get in touch. We had a really good response last time, and if you've got any more questions that I want answered, then tell us and email in, and we'll answer them. So there'll be further consultations that you'll hear about very soon, both on our Facebook and undoubtedly probably in the media as well. So keep your eyes peeled and your ears to the ground, and you know, we look forward to engaging with you again. But enjoy the rest of your evening, and hopefully one day we look forward to meeting a lot of you in Kielder. Thank you very, very much.